Well, welcome to tonight's generosity video. I am joined tonight by Jan and Leslie, and one story that came up in our meetings about the impact of generosity at St. Peter's was the story of a single mother and her three sons. We'll call her Ms. M tonight to keep her identity confidential. But I've brought on Leslie and Jan to share a little bit about that story and how it unfolded. And some of you may have been at St. Peter's during that time, and you may have some knowledge of what went on, but it's a pretty amazing story of how one family was blessed by the generosity of people at St. Peter's. So Jan and Leslie, I wonder if you could just share with us a little bit about how that story came about.
So the family, as far as I can remember, they lived close to the church, and they were visiting our church. They came on a regular basis for a while, and the family wasn't in a great home life situation, and they got an opportunity to move to a more permanent apartment type situation in town. Is that right?
Yeah, it was transitional housing.
Transitioning, yeah. So they were moving from their current situation to a new situation, and they really didn't have very much, to be honest with you, for a new apartment, to the point where they didn't have a shower curtain, furniture, really much of anything. So the council had discussed it, and the church raised quite a bit of money to take the boys shopping for Christmas. So we decided to do that. We raised, do you remember how much we raised, Pastor Sean?
I do not.
I don't either. Do you remember, Leslie, how much? We had quite a bit to spend.
It was a good bit, yes.
Because I know that we spent a lot of money on each of the boys individually. And then after we bought them things that they needed and some things that they wanted, they still had a big ask. Remember, Leslie? And we took them and got them a video game console that they really wanted, and that was the best. That was the best part. So the thing that really struck me was when we took them shopping, the things that they were asking for were socks and underwear. The kids were, how old were they, Leslie? The oldest one, maybe 13, and the youngest one, 7 or 8, probably.
7, 8, and then maybe one in 6th grade.
Right. They were close. I remember them being close to my son's age, and I was thinking about the things that he was asking for Christmas, and what was on his wish list, and then to see these boys and what they were asking for whenever we took them shopping, it was quite a difference. What about you, Leslie?
What kind of things stood out to you about that day going shopping?
Definitely their wish list. Things that we certainly take for granted were things that they were wishing for. Was certainly an eye-opening experience for me personally. I think they were very guarded at first. They just weren't quite sure about us, or I kind of felt that way, who we were, kind of what we were, our whole purpose, I guess, of what we were doing with them. They just really didn't want to talk at first. And then as the day went on, we spent some time with them for lunch, took them to lunch as well afterwards. They just really opened up, and we did learn a good bit about their situation. And it just, again, was just really an eye-opening experience of just things that we take for granted every day.
Things that I remember, we took them shopping, and we were looking for shoes. Leslie, do you remember?
Yes.
And the oldest boy took off his shoes, and he didn't have any socks on.
Yes.
Because he didn't have any socks.
Right.
So so we made sure that they had socks whenever we went. And that was one thing that I really remember. He didn't want to take his shoes off because he knew he didn't have socks. And I don't know if he didn't want us to know he didn't have socks, but something as simple as socks, that we take for granted, that we open the door and we have them in there. just due to their situation, the fact that they probably have moved around a lot, or just haven't had the means or the opportunities to have socks. And he was really grateful to be able to have them. We had to open up a pair in the store there, just so you could try on shoes.
Yeah. And to not have socks during the Christmas season.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of any time of the year, that's not flip flop weather at all.
Definitely not.
Yeah. And I remember they were introduced to St. Peter's by Ken and Joe Hurley. She was a neighbor of theirs, and the boys had really kind of were drawn to Ken, and I think he had done a lot of little things to show it, just small acts of kindness, and eventually drew them into coming to worship at St. Peter's. And I remember I was just so proud of not only the generosity of the disciples there, but to have the two of you take a day and just spend it with them and have fun spending the gifts that had been given. While you were out, you went shopping and went to lunch, and then how did you sense a change in the relationship when you saw them in worship after that?
Well, they moved across town,
Mm-hmm.
and they were living in town. It wasn't as easy for them to get to worship anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I did see them at the shelter for meals whenever I would serve there, because I served there with the church, and then I've served there through work as well. Or at Food Lion, we volunteer. So I mean, they always were very grateful. They were, I'm sure that it was a very positive experience for them to know that someone cared enough about them to make sure that they had the things that they needed, that they didn't necessarily have, and to make sure that they were taken care of.
And how did that experience make you both feel about not only being able to be with these boys and give them a Christmas that would not have been possible, but also about being a part of St. Peter's Lutheran Church?
That was a very humbling but a very proud moment for me. That, again, when you think about Christmas time and when you're kind of budgeting things for your own family, that people were generous enough to just give that extra little bit. And so many people just give that extra little bit. And that really went a long way. I guess Cooper agrees as well. Like I said, it was just very humbling for me personally, just the things that they wanted and were so grateful for. I remember one of the little boys wanted a book and was just so excited to receive a book. I know personally, if my children opened up a book under the tree, they would not be happy with me that was their selection from their mother. So it was just very humbling to hear their story, and just makes you very proud to be a part of a church that could look beyond your own home to help someone else. And, just what a blessing that was for them, but even probably 10 times more for us to be able to be a part of that and experience it with those boys.
How about you, Jan? You've both been part of St. Peter's just about as long as I've been alive.
We're lifers, yeah. Living where we live and growing up in Eastern Owen County, you don't always think about there being a need like that close by the church. I know there's a lot of my family that lives on Palmer Road and St. Peter's Church Road, and I know a lot of the people who live there. But there's a lot of people who live in that area too who have a lot more needs than we do, and you just don't always see it, or you don't always realize it until you have an experience like this. They lived close by, and that's what brought them to us. And they're our neighbors. But we never would have known it, if Ken and Joe hadn't brought them into the church. So I'm thankful for them for bringing them in. and giving us an opportunity to bless them, because I don't know that they would have otherwise.
To me, it's just such a great story of being the body of Christ together. We all had a different part to play in that whole process, but to be able to come together and understand ourselves as a church, and not a social club, but as a church, as the people of God, and to be able to bring these boys and their mother into this blessing was just a wonderful experience for me to see. And you both were far more involved with this than I was, but even myself looking at it, it was just really moving and a wonderful thing to see how God was working. I'm curious down the road, as those boys get older, if we might see them again when they have the ability to choose where they live, because right now they don't. And
Right.
I don't believe that they'll live with their mother at this point either. So you just don't know where those seeds are how they're going to come up, when they're going to come up, and how we might get to see that.
I mean, they probably have never had a day like that up until that point, and I don't even know if they have since, where they've had an opportunity to go to a store and pick out whatever it was that they wanted. And we take that for granted. We go to the store, and just because our kids ask for something, sometimes we just, we give them things just because they ask for it, but I'm sure that they haven't had that opportunity, and it was really a good experience for them. I'm glad that we got to do it.
Right. And not just the gifts but just someone spending that time, and just to know that there are people that care about my feelings and my well-being, where sometimes they may have been in a situation they didn't feel that was the case. You hope, in their dark hours, they can take that little bit of light with them as they go through life, to know that there are people that care and there is good in this world. And, hopefully they'll look for those opportunities, if need be, again, to reach out and know that we do care about their well-being.
And that's really the deeper meaning, isn't it? The gifts were wonderful, but the gifts were really more signs of love, and the love is what you really want to communicate.
Right.
More.
I mean, they'll outgrow the bikes and the socks, but hopefully, just knowing that deep down somebody did care and does care about their well-being, including my dog. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hopefully that will stick with them for a lifetime.
Yeah, and all the coats and the toys and the socks. Underneath that, they represent how much those boys are loved by the disciples at St. Peter's. And generosity ultimately is rooted in love. God is generous towards us beyond what we could ever do, and we in turn are generous to others. We love because He first loved us.
That's right.
I know that after we took them shopping, we thanked everyone, and so since we're talking about it again, we never could have done it without the generosity of the people in the church. And I really want to thank everyone for opening up their hearts, opening up their wallets, making sure that this could happen, because it was a really very positive experience for the family, and it was a really positive experience for me and Leslie as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
God is really doing some wonderful things at St. Peter's, and not one of those things is based on one individual. It's all of us together as the people of God, and God's Spirit moving through us together.
Spirit of the